And it's 7:24, and it's time to take a look at Richard Dagenet this morning. He's in the new Montreal offices of an international agency that specializes in search and rescue.
Good morning. About 1 million people have emergency beacons, and in the event of trouble, the activation of those beacons sets the whole search and rescue system in motion. The Cospas-Sarsat system relies on 11 satellites, and since 1982 has helped in the rescue of nearly 19,000 people all over the world. Its headquarters have only been in Montreal a short time. We'll talk about the move here to Montreal, and we'll also talk about the need for people to update their equipment later on This Morning Live.
Right now, we're going to turn things to Richard, who is at the new Montreal offices of an international agency who've just moved here from London, England, and they specialize in search and rescue.
Good morning. Back in 1979, 4 nations sat down, one of them was Canada, and founded the Cospas-Sarsat satellite system, which is used for search and rescue. For about 18 years, Cospas-Sarsat was located in London, England, but recently moved to Montreal. Daniel Levesque is the head of the Cospas-Sarsat Secretariat. And Mr. Levesque, why did they decide, after 18 years in London, to move to Montreal?
Well, it's a long story, and perhaps I should try to make it as short as possible. Basically, the intergovernmental agreement under which Cospas-Sarsat was established initially, and that was only in 1988 that we had this full international status, didn't give the Secretariat or the program an individual legal personality, and we needed this kind of legal status to develop further. With more participants in the program, more stations, more satellites, more beacons, users, etc., we needed this international status, this legal status, and that is what Canada provided us through a new international agreement that was signed last year.
In terms of your operation, what does it mean to you to be here in Montreal?
Well, actually, that doesn't change much in terms of our operation, but it gives us the opportunity to develop further and create new services for the users, like, for example, establishing an international database for registering the 4.6 MHz beacons or things of that kind.
Now, there are 39 nations part of Cospas-Sarsat now?
That's correct. At the moment, there are 39 nations that are parts of Cospas-Sarsat and contribute to the program and to the system at different levels. They can contribute a ground receiving station, for example. They can simply participate in the meetings and participate in the management of the system.
Now, these nations, why isn't the whole world involved? Why are there only 39? And you guys provide non-discriminatory and free for the people who are in distress rescues.
Yeah, the system is free for everybody, whether the nation participate or not. Whether your countries participate or not in the system, you will receive the service if you buy one of these beacons. The reason why nations want to participate is because they want to be involved, and some others don't have the means or don't have the technology or the capacity to participate or the interest to participate in that particular program, and they rely on the others. This is a cooperative program. That's the best effort basis, and everybody is welcome, but obviously nobody is forced.
The old beacons were 121.5 megahertz. The new beacons are 406 megahertz. Mr. Levesque touched on that. When we come back, we'll show you the beacons and talk about the differences between them.
Thank you very much, Al. Well, SARSAT stands for Search and Rescue, and Cospas stands for the same thing in Russian. And so Cospas-Sarsat is an international agency that looks over search and rescue missions. And they've just moved from London, England, where they've been for 2 decades. And their new base is now in Montreal. And that's where we find Richard Dagenet this morning.
Good morning. We're talking about emergency beacons, search and rescue, and they have come a long way over the years. Daniel Levesque is head of the Cospas-Sarsat Secretariat, and Mr. Levesque, maybe you can talk a little bit about, we've got quite a few here on the table, the evolution of emergency beacons.
The early beacons that were on big ships, etc., you have a few examples here, were obviously a little bit bulky and fairly expensive. With time, the size has decreased and the cost also has decreased, which is lucky for everybody. You have here an example of an aeronautical beacon that's on an airplane, and you have here examples of personal beacons that you can take with yourself on the trek.
Now, The older beacons, or the beacons that probably a lot of people are still using, are at 121.5 megahertz, but the new beacons are going to be at 406 megahertz, and people should be switching their beacons to 406 megahertz. How important is that?
Yes, 1115 is a very old technology that existed before we had the satellite system. So we can certainly locate them with the satellite system, but that's not very accurate. There is no identification. Nobody knows who is transmitting, and that can be very, very well a pizza oven or a TV set. Even we have examples of that, and it's very difficult to discriminate between a real and a false alert at 1115. The new generation 406 is a lot more performant. I mean, you have an identification, a unique identification in the beacon. The search and rescue operation will know who is in distress and can check the size of the boat or the nature of the vehicle. And you have a much better accuracy in the location that you get from that. And you also get the signal through much more quickly, because it goes also through geostationary satellites, which give you an almost instantaneous alert.
Because a geostationary satellite watches a larger portion of the Earth all the time.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, you'd like to also tell people that along with the importance of switching their beacons from 121 to 406, that they shouldn't mishandle them, and they've got to be careful not to set them off accidentally.
Absolutely. False alerts is a problem, like in any alert system. And if you turn on your beacon, you will create some additional work for search and rescue people that they don't need. And really, you divert resources that could be used for real emergencies.
And it's basically the old technology was analog and the new technology is digital, pretty much with everything in the world, it seems.
That's correct. That's the way things go, and the new technology at 406 is digital, gives you identifications, gives you better accuracy, better power, and you can see the size also have been reduced dramatically.
Yeah, no, and when we come back, we can talk about some of the statistics and a little bit more information about how these things work, because one of these, the 406 megahertz with a GPS, can locate you to within 100 meters of where you are. A good thing when you're in an emergency.
Coming up on 8:37, there you have it. Last look at the day's news on This Morning Live. If we had to find Richard Dagenet this morning, we'd certainly know where to go.
Good morning. We are at Cospas-Sarsat. It is a satellite system that the headquarters of it have been based in Montreal since last summer. This is an emergency beacon, and actually Cospas-Sarsat is kind of urging people who I was going to say adventure, who sail, who mountain climb, whatever, to update their equipment to the 406 megahertz beacons as soon as possible. Is that fair to say, Cheryl?
Well, we're going to phase out processing by satellite of the older 121.5 megahertz beacon in 2009, which is really just around the corner, because beacons on average last about 5 years, and or the battery life is about 5 years. So it's a good time to buy the 406 beacons now.
Cheryl Bertoya is Principal Operations Officer here at the Cospas-Sarsat Secretariat, and the system, as it is now, works pretty well. I mean, that's just 2005 saves that you have there on your computer. Maybe you could talk about how well it works and maybe the potential that it has for working even more efficiently.
Well, as you can see here on the screen, the 2005 saves show that around the world, almost 1,500 people were saved by sending distress alerts through our system to search and rescue services in 2005. So, and overall, since our system was conceived in 1982, over 19,000 people have been saved using the system. So, I
thought it was interesting, the clumps of black dots. There are many clumps in Australia, and there are some in Africa too. The African ones you explained, you said it was the rally.
Yes, that's the Dakar Rally, and as you can see in the coastal areas of Australia, the beacons are used very widely as well. They're actually legislated and required to be carried there, so they have a lot of system saves in that part of the world.
And in Alaska, you mentioned that's a lot of people who use snowmobiles and who they break down and they're trapped in the middle of nowhere. That's true?
Yes, the beacons are very useful for areas where you don't have good cell phone coverage, for example. They're really a tool of last resort. So when you are in distress in a very remote area, you can be assured that the satellite coverage will be there for you.
In terms of Canadians rescued, do you have any numbers on I'm sure that Canada is one of the founding, 4 founding groups or countries for Cospas-Sarsat.
Yes, that's true. Canada last year reported almost 200 incidents where Cospas-Sarsat was involved, and in 2004, 34 people were saved directly as a result of use of their Cospas-Sarsat beacons.
Now, this is the old beacon here. You can locate to within 20 kilometers. This is the 406 megahertz, which can locate you to within 3 kilometers. And if you get the 406 megahertz or a beacon with the GPS, it's 100 meters. So don't be left out in the cold.